Hi, my name is David Bergvinson, and for the November 9th, 2021 edition of the World Weather Watcher, we're going to be having a closer look at Southern Africa and Eastern Africa on the impact the rainy season is having on farmers, but also reflect on the context of climate change and the big shifts that we're seeing in our weather systems and what that will mean for how we best adapt to climate change in the years ahead. In the news this week, we're seeing that the BBC has been reporting on science articles that have looked at the impact of the ocean as a critical buffer in mitigating the impact of climate change. The oceans absorb approximately a third of the carbon dioxide emitted. Even more importantly, they are absorbing a tremendous amount of heat, approximately 90% of the heat associated with our warmer atmosphere. This has enabled us really to stabilize our climate over the years despite the rapid increase in carbon dioxide levels. Now, this hasn't mitigated entirely the impact of climate change on local weather. And what scientists are able to do now is use high-resolution downscaled climate models to look at what weather we can anticipate in the future and then try to get ahead of it from a perspective of infrastructure investments that are more resilient to ensure preservation of life, and also think through human health policies that will mitigate against a warmer atmosphere. We also need to think about our food system and how that becomes more resilient to a warmer and more variable atmosphere. And so what was reported by Bloomberg today was the fact that in our current situation with a warming of 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, we're seeing a 1,000-year event unfold in the Pacific Northwest of Canada and the United States, where we saw extreme heat in places like Oregon and Washington and British Columbia due to a heat dome. And that's with our current warming. If we were to increase that temperature of our atmosphere by another 0.8 degrees Celsius, that 1 in a 1,000-year event is likely to occur once every 5 or once every 10 years. And so with these kinds of insights in mind, it becomes increasingly important to use weather analytics to help society adapt to these changes that we're already experiencing and will likely experience even more frequently in the future. So when we look to precipitation over the last 30 days and areas that are anomalous, we see that the north-central part of the United States was wetter than normal last 30 days. And also, much of Brazil was wetter than normal last 30 days. Same was true for the Democratic Republic of Congo. But we see many areas that were drier than normal, such as Central America or the eastern part of Africa or places like Myanmar. And so we need to be monitoring these areas, especially from a food security perspective, in areas that are dependent on rain-fed agriculture. Looking to the forecast, we see a little drier than normal for the northern part of South America, which over the course of the summer has actually been wetter than normal. We also see a continued drier than normal trend for the eastern part of Africa, and we see a little drier than normal conditions for the southeastern part of China. Looking to maximum temperature the last 30 days across most of Canada and the north central part of the United States, much warmer than normal, about 3 to 6 degrees Celsius warmer than normal. We also see warmer than normal conditions for Argentina, as well as for parts of Eastern Africa, also the southern part of China, and across most of Russia, much warmer than normal for the last 30 days. In the forecast, we see continued above normal temperatures for the central over to the eastern part of Russia, as well as through Kazakhstan. We see warmer than normal conditions for the northern part of Canada, and also warmer than normal conditions for the eastern part of Africa. Looking to precipitation in the next 15 days, we see dry conditions for the southwestern part of the United States and across Mexico. We see reasonable rains, though, for Brazil, as well as Central Africa, and across Southeast Asia. Now, looking at precipitation over potential evapotranspiration as a key index for rain-fed agriculture, areas in green are suitable for rain-fed agriculture. So we see that's the case for Central America and the northern part of South America the last 30 days, as it is for the central part of Africa and across Southeast Asia. Looking to the forecast, we see dry conditions through Mexico and the tip of South America. We also see dry conditions for the southern part of Argentina and dry conditions across the eastern part of Africa, which is a real concern given the delayed rains and below normal rainfall for this part of Africa. We also see dry conditions for India, while we see good conditions in the forecast for Southeast Asia. AWARE has developed a dynamic agroecological index that's based off of FAO's agroecological zones that looks at long-term temperature and rainfall patterns to define growing ecologies as arid, marginal, suitable, or humid. And then comparing that to the forecast, we can assess whether crop production is at risk of either lower yields or even complete crop failure if drought persists in different areas. So looking at this dynamic agroecological index for the last 30 days, we see areas to be watching for are the southern tip of Brazil and Uruguay, shown in red here. We also see concern for Myanmar and growing concerns for the Horn of Africa, especially the southern part of Somalia, and also the coastal and central areas of Kenya. Looking to the forecast, we see some concern here for the northern tip of South America, growing concern here for the central part of Kenya and the northwestern part of Tanzania, and also for the southeastern part of China. Looking at the dynamic agroecological index for East Africa, we see the last week we were flagging this concern here around the lake area for Kenya and also for the southern tip of Somalia and the northwestern part of Tanzania. And this is actually expanding now in the forecast. So this area of concern is growing, and with it, the concern for food security in this part of East Africa. So we'll be tracking this very closely, but for those responsible for food security in this part of the world, this is really an alert for you to get ahead of this problem so that you can reduce human suffering from the perspective of food insecurity in the coming months. Now, we're able to actually look at the current conditions using these trend analyses for different parts of East Africa. So in the case of Tanzania, while rainfall variability that translates to an increased variation of P over PT over time has increased, it's still hovering around 1.0, which should be suitable to sustain crops like sorghum, for example. However, when we look to the coastal areas, we see that this is now dropping. The last 3 years, it's been extremely dry in the coastal areas of Kenya, leading to issues of food insecurity. And it's even more pronounced in areas such as Kitui in the central part of Kenya, where this ratio of P over PT for this current season is virtually zero. So this is an area that we really do need to pay attention to and get ahead of any food security issues that could emerge. Now, looking at precipitation for southern Africa, we're able to look at absolute terms of rainfall, both observed for the past week and also in the forecast on the right. In the case of observed, we see reasonable rains for places like Zimbabwe the past week, and they will continue, especially in the southern part of Zimbabwe for the upcoming week. We can see a lot of variation in rainfall. So for a country like Zimbabwe, which is very much dependent on rain-fed agriculture, really thinking through cropping systems and the infrastructure investments needed to become more resilient to climate change is becoming increasingly important, especially in emerging economies that often don't have the resources to make infrastructure investments for resilience. They have to be extremely prudent in how they adapt to climate change. And obviously, starting with weather analytics and insights to optimize investments is critically important. Now, when we look at this dynamic agroecological index for the same region of southern Africa, we can see that for the last week, Conditions have been good with the exception of parts of Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, shown in red here. But in the forecast, this area is expanding. And of particular concern are places, like Botswana down here, but also parts of Democratic Republic of Congo that are expecting good production, but because of failing rains, this may not be the case. And then, of course, growing concern around food security for the coastal areas of Kenya, central Kenya, and also for the northwestern corner of Tanzania. If analytics like this are of interest to you, I invite you to go to our Adapter platform at apps.aware.com, where you can start your weather analytics journey for free. Until next week, take care.